Greetings, curious minds. Today we journey into the arid heart of ancient South America. For decades, people believed these massive desert drawings were landing strips for alien ships. However, the profound truth hidden beneath the scorching sand is far more tragic and deeply human. These giant shapes were not meant for visitors from the stars, but for the silent gods of water. Witness the final plea of a brilliant civilization facing absolute annihilation. 2,000 years ago, the barren plains of southern Peru birthed a remarkable society. The Nazca people thrived in one of the driest, most unforgiving deserts on our entire planet. But how did they survive? They conquered the earth by digging magnificent spiral aqueducts. These deep wells, known as puquios, drew hidden water from deep underground layers to the surface. Healthy farmers bathed in mud and sweat, turning dry dust into flourishing green valley oases. They grew abundant crops of corn and beans, feeding a rapidly expanding and vibrant empire. In the shade of adobe temples, brilliant artisans focused on weaving stunning tapestries. They molded intricate clay pottery, painting them with vivid colors extracted from desert roots. According to ancient records, the high priest ruled with absolute spiritual authority. Wearing massive solid gold masks and vibrantly dyed ponchos, they stood as bridges between men and gods. This society seemed strong, thriving beneath the protection of sacred mountain deities. But beneath the golden surface of prosperity, a deep cultural anxiety always lingered. The Nazca knew their glorious survival completely depended on the fragile blessing of rain. Without water, their great adobe cities and magnificent green farms would quickly turn to dust. Every prayer, every woven thread, and every painted vessel carried a silent plea for water. For centuries, the gods smiled upon them, sending life-giving rivers down from the distant Andes. The people celebrated with massive festivals, offering beautiful ceramics to the rushing streams. Their religious center, the majestic city of Cahuachi, became a beating heart of pure faith. Thousands gathered there, marveling at the towering mud-brick pyramids against the azure sky. Yet, as the 5th century quickly approached, a terrifying climate shift began to unfold. The warm ocean currents of El Niño altered the weather patterns with devastating cruelty. The sacred rivers slowly vanished, leaving behind nothing but cracked earth and empty, silent riverbeds. Panic rippled through the peaceful valleys as the once mighty spiral aqueducts ran completely dry. The priests offered more desperate sacrifices, raising their golden staffs to the burning, merciless sun. Yet, the heavens remained utterly silent, mocking their prayers with an endless, suffocating heat wave. What would you do if your entire world was dying of thirst and the gods simply refused to listen? The once healthy farmers watched their vibrant green cornfields wither into brittle, lifeless brown stalks. Their grand society, built on water, was now staring directly into the face of dark extinction. El Niño transformed their paradise into a blistering and apocalyptic wasteland. Dust storms violently whipped across the flat plains, swallowing the tiny mud-brick villages whole. The high priests, once proud and powerful, now appeared gaunt, frantic, and haunted by constant failure. They stared deeply into the cracked, dry wells, grasping their ceremonial staffs with trembling, weak hands. Starving laborers collapsed beside their empty woven baskets, their cracked lips bleeding from extreme thirst. Desperate shamans performed wild, frenzied rain dances, their sweat mixing with the blinding red desert dust. Animal carcasses littered the parched ground, their white bones baking under the unforgiving heat. Historical analysis shows their religious faith quickly mutated into pure, desperate panic. Old offerings were no longer enough to satisfy the angry spirits of the dry mountains. They desperately needed a message so massive that the sky gods could not possibly ignore its meaning. Driven by necessity, the priests devised a monumental and ambitious spiritual project. They turned their attention away from the empty wells and looked directly toward the vast desert floor. The high plateau of Pampa Colorada provided the perfect, untouched canvas for their ultimate prayer. Thousands of weakened citizens were summoned to the scorching plains, abandoning their dying farms behind. They carried nothing but simple wooden stakes, long cotton ropes, and broken shards of clay pottery. The crisis quickly evolved into the largest artistic undertaking of the ancient world. Without an aerial view, their mathematical precision bordered on the truly miraculous. They plotted enormous geometric patterns and divine animal shapes directly onto the earth. The completely relentless sun beat down, baking the skin of the faithful workers as they crawled in the dirt. Every drop of sweat falling onto the hot sand was an offering, a sacrifice for a single cloud. Their fragile bodies were failing, but their absolute religious zeal pushed them beyond human limits. The method was brutally simple, yet painstakingly slow and physically devastating to them. The surface was covered in a thick layer of dark iron pebbles, oxidized by the harsh weather. Deep beneath this rusted, reddish crust lay a brilliant, contrasting layer of pale, untouched white clay. Men, women, and even children knelt on the burning ground, scraping away the dark red stones by hand. Their torn fingers bled, leaving crimson stains that quickly dried on the newly exposed, blinding white earth. For miles, these continuous bright lines emerged like massive, desperate scars across the arid plateau. They built a massive outdoor cathedral, an open-air temple entirely visible to the heavens. One by one, the magnificent geoglyphs took shape, carved with deep reverence and intense sorrow. The giant desert spider, matching Orion's stars, stretched its long legs across the endless wasteland. A massive monkey with a spiraling tail symbolized the distant jungles that still harbored rainfall. The beautiful hummingbird, a sacred messenger, pointed its long beak directly towards the sunrise. These giant figures were not meant to be admired from the ground as simple, decorative landscape art. They were designed as intricate, sacred pathways built exclusively for ritualistic walking. The high priest, heavily burdened by the sorrow of his dying people, led the solemn processions. Thousands of exhausted citizens followed him, stepping carefully along the glowing white trenches. They smashed precious ceramic vessels filled with shells against the dry earth, desperately begging for hydration. Imagine walking miles in agony, eyes fixed upward, hoping for a miracle that never comes. The sheer scale of these drawings proves that this was not merely an art project, but an obsession. Some trapezoidal lines are so vast and straight, they stretch for several miles without ever bending. They resemble massive desert runways, which birthed the modern myth of ancient alien astronauts. Archaeology firmly debunks this, revealing the profound earthly tragedy behind the lines. The Nazca cried into the void, trying to physically force the gods to look down and pity them. The desperate days turned to months, and months stretched into agonizing years of unrelenting drought. The ceremonies became weaker and much less frequent as the population began to slowly starve. Laborers collapsed on the very lines they were digging, their bodies baking under the merciless heat. They built their own enormous graveyard, etching their final will directly into the burning sand. The vibrant culture of weaving and pottery was completely replaced by the grim labor of survival. Desperation bred dark violence. Evidence shows a sharp increase in tragically severed lives. Fallen enemies were offered to the mountains, hoping vital essence might somehow purchase a drop of rain. Vital essence dried faster than water on Pampa Colorada, disappearing without a trace. The high priest stood at the center of the giant spider, holding his broken wooden staff in the air. His faded poncho fluttered, his face a tragic mask of unwavering and desperate devotion. He looked at the sky, waiting for the dark thunderclouds that had blessed their ancestors centuries ago. But the sky remained a cruel azure, devoid of any moisture or mercy for the dying people. As the sun set, casting crimson shadows across the plains, the silence became absolutely deafening. The gods never answered. The catastrophic drought persisted, totally ruining their society. The magnificent pyramids of Kawachi were abandoned to the sweeping, relentless desert winds. Mummified corpses lay scattered across the Great Plains, perfectly preserved by the extreme lack of moisture. The high priest fell, his brittle bones sinking into the pristine white lines he had so fiercely championed. As the culture perished, the swirling sand threatened to erase everything they had ever accomplished. But nature, in a twist of irony, decided to become the ultimate guardian of their dying Plea. Because the plateau gets almost no rain or wind, the massive drawings remained perfectly intact. For over 1,000 years, the giant spider, monkey, and hummingbird lay sleeping in absolute silence. They are not landing strips. They are the frozen, fossilized screams of a people begging for their lives. The Nazca left behind no written texts, no books of poetry or historical wartime chronicles. Instead, they inscribed their tragedy directly onto the face of the earth, a message for eternity. Their colossal artwork is a chilling reminder of how fragile human empires truly are. When the rivers dry up and the seasonal rains fail, even the most vibrant civilization crumbles. The scorching sun continues to beat down on the empty, lifeless ruins of Kawachi today. Deep inside the massive spiral wells, dry stones hold the faint echoes of a prosperous, lost era. Archaeologists still wander these barren plains, piecing together fragments of the tragic past. As the red desert wind continuously blows across the white sands, the giant monkey still waits for rain. The high priest's desperate prayer was never answered, but his artwork achieved immortality. These ancient geoglyphs force us to confront the terrifying power of an angry climate. Nature wiped out the mighty Nazca society with the absolute cruelty of endless drought. But while the harsh desert sun burned this civilization into dust, a different fate awaits. Halfway across the world, another spectacular ancient empire faced a very different doom. Instead of parched earth and burning sands, they were conquered by a massive, overwhelming sea of green. A giant eastern megacity choked under the suffocating grip of a tropical jungle. Thick vines and towering tree roots shattered perfectly carved stone temples into 1,000 pieces. Brutal nature proved that whether by absolute drought or relentless growth, it always reclaims its land. Prepare to uncover the secrets of a magnificent wonder swallowed entirely by the forest. Join us next time as we explore the forgotten majesty of that swallowed Eastern civilization. The Nazca lines remain a breathtaking monument to human endurance against nature's wrath. Were these lines an act of pure faith or the tragic madness of a dying people? Comment below. If you truly enjoyed this journey, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel.